Good morning. Yeah, it's the second day of the conference, isn't it? All right, let's do it. Come on, good morning. I know we have to go through this every time, but let's get the energy going. Listen, we've got a great session this morning talking, by the way, in the program this is scheduled as being Laura Overton, plus our brilliant panel. I'm stepping in for Laura, who sadly can't be here at the moment. She's done a great job preparing the panel, so I'm stepping in for her. Thank you very much. Laura, sorry you can't be here. So we have a great panel. We're talking about learning leaders shaping tomorrow's workspace. And so we've got 4 different practical views of how this has been done. So I want this to be a message of inspiration and information, a practical, grounded view of what can be done. Got great people here sharing their stories. I want to go through the housekeeping first, and then we're going to, of course, ask you a question and get you to talk before we kick off, because, of course, we need to energize the room. So let me go through the housekeeping first. Firstly, the first bit of getting everybody energized in the morning is a big round of applause for our sponsors. Hey! Thank you. Very importantly, if your first language isn't English or you just want to see the subtitles, then go ahead, use the QR code, download the transcription and translation. I'll leave that up for just a second. It's interesting, my daughter, like a lot of young people, she's 23, she likes to watch films with the subtitles on. I don't understand it. So my wife and I, we sit down to watch a movie, and you can see the reaction, right? It's 2 60-year-olds on the sofa. Oh, she's bloody well put the subtitle, and we're trying to work out how do we turn the subtitles and the captions off. There we are. That's it. Okay, so that's how you get your translation and your transcriptions. These are our socials. I guess you all know this by now, but it's OEB plus something on all of the platforms. Recordings, thank you, Everett, are available afterwards at the website. And jumping ahead a bit, I know we've still got a whole day of conference to go, but please do save the date for next year, 2nd to the 4th of December. The process we're going to go through with the panel is a bit unlike yesterday. So yesterday we had presentations, then Q&A. This is a bit different. We're going to have a series of presentation, discussion, 4 times, building up to the idea that it is possible for L&D to shift from being where it is at the moment, which is largely a fulfillment function, a passive function, into being strategic, to taking a role for the future. But there are barriers in the way. There are things blocking us. So the first thing I'd like to do is just ask everybody here a question. What are those barriers? So what I'd love you to do is to discuss between yourselves in 2s, 3s, whatever is comfortable. What's the greatest barrier to L&D working strategically in your organization? And I'd like you to express this, if possible, in 3 words or less. I know that there's a lot to talk about here, but try to boil it down to 3 words or less. I'd love you to discuss this, come up with some great feedback in 2 minutes. Go ahead. 3, 4. Avinash was just saying, I could tell he was waiting for me to break the glass. And I have done that in the past, and particularly loud crowd, you just keep hitting until something breaks. Great, lots of chat, lots of energy. Who wants to share what their barriers are? Not so chatty. Now, there we go. Right, microphone's coming to you. Thank you.
Well, I think it's mainly sort of the strategic level. I mean, we have to have the bigger organization understand that this is important, and we have to have strategy to do it, and not just sort of work from below whatever level that might be.
So they don't understand, is that the problem?
Yeah. Tradition, habits, and whatnot. We come from the army, so, you know.
The army the military generally is a very interesting situation because effectively the military is a training organization.
Yep.
I mean, if it's not fighting, it's training. So they must take it seriously in one part, mustn't they? Because they're doing it all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
But that means that in their mind, training has a particular role and they don't see it as anything beyond that. That's really clear. Thank you very much. All right, any other points? Yes, we've got a hand over here. We've got a microphone running to you. There we go. Yes.
We were chatting around, well, what really makes the difference strategically? So you can have if we're honest about leadership development programs, for example, in every organization, they're probably going to cover the same things at a functional level. So is the difference just purely in how that is communicated with regards to the impact it's having on the business? So is it down to us on how we communicate the impact that program or whatever it is that we've developed is having in the business, and how connected are we to the outcome? Or are we just communicating the outcome in a programmatic L&D focus level, or are we communicating it in this is the difference it's going to have on the business? So strategy is around, is there a clear link to how you're helping, what you're doing, and how is that helping the business move forward, and are you communicating that effectively?
So it boils down to communication, because you could communicate, as you say, what you're doing, or you could communicate the outcome, and that may make the difference between being accepted strategically or being thought of as someone who's just doing something. I like that. It kind of goes with the military example as well. We have to communicate the right thing. Very good. I've got a hand going up here. I do feel for the microphone carriers, because you have to be very alert and run around. Yes, go ahead.
I think if you want to plan L&D working strategically, then you need to know where you go with your group, organization, whatever. Yeah. And I mean, if managers are able to plan 1 year ahead, then working strategically in L&D is difficult.
I think, so we have to understand what the business is doing as well as us being able to communicate. Is that the gist of it?
No, I think the manager needs to have a plan further than 1 year ahead where he wants to go with his or her department. Okay,
the manager being the L&D manager or the manager in the organization?
The manager of the group you are providing your education training to.
Right, okay, so if they're not being strategic, we can't be strategic.
Exactly.
Right, okay, thank you, I get it. Well, by the way, that's, where are you from? Sorry, where are you from, by the way?
I'm from the Netherlands.
Okay, right, so I think in the Netherlands that's completely comprehensible. I think in the UK, the idea that you're even planning for 1 year ahead would be seen as being strategic because we're so short term. So thank you for that. So we have to understand that they have to have a strategy and we have to communicate. And there was a hand over here as well. Yes, thank you.
We were discussing the problem of teachers. Teachers can be the greatest barrier because very often we're defending our own corners. We're trying to prove that we need a reason to exist. And we're not actually thinking about the organization strategically, we're thinking about ourselves. And if you go outside and look at all the training providers, it's their interest they have at heart first, not the clients or the customers.
It's a very honest assessment, and I would say, I can't speak for teaching, I come from the workplace learning and development space, but it's absolutely true that in workplace L&D, one of the biggest barriers to us being strategic is ourselves, and we get in our own way. Well, that's really interesting. Communication, the business being strategic, and us getting in our own way. There was a hand going up there. I was about to move on, but it seems so full of energy. I want to have one more point. Yes?
I just want to say, representing smaller organisations, not big corporates, time and money is a huge barrier.
Well, come on, let's be realistic, absolutely. I do a lot of work, travelling around, speaking to people. I very often ask, what are you concerned about? Time, money are always going to be on the agenda. I don't think it should stop us necessarily, but they are absolutely constraints, real constraints, and we shouldn't underplay them. So thank you very much for that. Some real constraints there, great. Let's crack on with our packed schedule. We've got a lot to get through. So we've got 4 speakers. We're going to be looking at a combination of practical case studies about what's happened. We're going to be looking at research into how we can help people learn and why it's important. And we're going to be looking at one great story about how one particular participant has taken a journey through being a junior member of an organization to running a strategic L&D function and how he has made that possible. I'm not going to spoil it with saying who's saying what just yet, but we're going to take us through a journey through 4 presentations, and presentation, discussion, as I say, and lots of interaction. If you've got a question at any point after a presentation, please just throw your hand up and let's get the dialogue going, because this is Thursday, this is the Friday morning, this is our chance to get ready for the rest of the conference. So I'm going to ask Avinash, I'm going to ask Dr. Anja Schmitz to begin with your presentation.
Perfect.
Anja.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I'm very honored to be opening your Friday morning, and that after Don with all his energy. You know, that's kind of a hard speaking position to be in, but I hope I can live up to the challenge. Now, what did I bring along for you guys? I have tried to put together a couple of things you could probably use as a reflection on what have you already learned about all of these topics we've discussed yesterday. Okay, of course, I don't know which sessions you've attended, but I think many of you should be using that, or should be able to use this as a learning reflection period, okay? Because I'm a professor, you know, that's kind of what we do. This is how we need to start our lesson. And then I also want to share some research. So what could be a good way, a good lever for us to deal with our challenges that we're facing today? So let's get started and have a look at what could we describe as the most pressing issues in our context meaning the context of our organizations. So if you look at the picture that might already resemble some of the feelings you have in your company. So let's have a look. Of course, we've talked about all of these topics already yesterday. So if we look at what's going on in the environment, we see that we're faced with really rapid technological development, and also the disruption it causes in our business for L&D, also in our private lives, to be honest. And throughout the last 2 or 3 years, you know, we've also have to dealt with unprecedented in our lifetime, or in many of our lifetimes, economic and geopolitical uncertainties. Again, you know, starting with COVID, going on to wars that are taking place in a very disturbing frequency around the world. So what happens is that many authors have described this age as an age of hyper-accelerated change. Of course, that being something we have to deal with in our companies. But what does that mean? It means that we've entered an age of polycrisis. So all of these different developments kind of tie in together, and they have reinforcing effects upon each other. And also, sometimes they'll develop backlash effects, right? Increasing uncertainty and kind of firing again or firing up this hyper-acceleration of change. If we take a deeper look into, let's say, the eye of the storm where you are in your companies, what effects does it have? It has the effect that we have a high pressure to adapt to these changing environmental conditions, right? This is why we're here. This is why we're talking about all the topics. And we also see, talked about time and money, right? That now we're much more often faced with the question, okay, but how is what you're doing going to increase efficiency, right? Because of the economic downturn, because of the pressures we're feeling or facing in organizations. What we also discussed yesterday, and maybe you did so in your panels and in the workshops you've attended to as well, is that one outcome of all of these different developments is that we're facing a very high AI adoption pressure, right? So we've had some discussions yesterday, and to be honest, even on Wednesday, talking about, well, you know, it's not a question of when or if we want to adopt, we have to adopt, and we're feeling that, you know, we're left behind if we don't immediately start, but often, as we've learned yesterday, we don't start with the problem, we start with the solution. So that was one key takeaway for me, and I think this is something we need to reflect upon. So the question is, what are specifically the effects on learning, okay? I called it, we're entering a learning capability trap. What is that trap? And, you know, in tribute to the UK, I chose the Mind the Gap visual for this. The trap is that on the one hand, we see, and this is some research I'm sharing with you guys, okay? And if you're interested in the research, just reach out to me and I'll share that with you. So we see that technological change and AI transformation can actually be conducive to learning, right? Because there's research going on thinking, okay, well, if people perceive all these environmental changes, are they not becoming more willing to change? Yeah? And we see, yes, that is actually the case in some instances. And we also see that AI, actually using AI as a learning tool, a learning partner, can actually enhance learning. We see the first studies emerging that it increases speed, it increases effectiveness. But as you can imagine, this is only one side of the story, because there's other research saying if you look at digital transformation and if you look at what's going on, you will realize that many learners are overwhelmed, right? For example, with the change, with the pace of change, and with the uncertainty they're feeling. And they have more pessimistic assessments of their own future. Right? We're talking about job loss, we're talking about the question, well, will there be people in, in jobs, or what is the future going to be? And we see that if people have this negative and pessimistic assessment of their future, and yesterday we even talked about students at Harvard having this pessimistic view of the future, then this results in reduced motivation to learn, and we have seen in research that that is especially true for vulnerable groups, right, who have less resources, personal resources for learning and so on, who might be older, yeah, let's not stereotype it, but in some cases might be less motivated for learning, and we also see gender effects, okay? Now, on the other hand, or not on the other hand, but to the same message, we also see that AI, the use of AI, reduces learning, right? You probably all discussed the effects yesterday. We see skill skipping, we see ghost learning, we see cognitive offloading, skill decay, and so on. So the question is, how can we mind the gap? So how can we deal with that? Because this gap is not going to go away. And yes, we will have to deal with AI, because by all our predictions, that is not going to go away either. So what could we use as our lever in order, to be able to deal with this gap? What we've done research on is work-related learning empowerment. So maybe some of you are familiar with the topic of psychological empowerment, and we have used that concept and we've transferred it to specifically work-related learning. And what it means is you feel learning empowered if you have the perception of meaning, so you know why you learn, okay, and this learning is important to you. You feel autonomous, and remember yesterday in the starting panel we talked a lot about learner agency. Yeah, this is kind of tying into the same concept. And you need to feel competent. So you need to be competent in your learning process. Yeah, not about the topic you're learning, but how do you deal, for example, with the technologies, which learning abilities can you shape how, and so on. And fourth, it is very helpful if you also feel that what you learn and your learning process actually has an impact. For example, has an impact on your team or also your career, okay? So we've developed this, we've also developed a scale for it, and we have tested this in a multi-wave online study, okay? And what we could show, and we could show that for the first time actually, is that if we measure work-related learning empowerment, right, how empowered do learners feel at T1, and we measure learning outcomes at T2, meaning 8 weeks later, people also report the more empowered they feel, the more informal learning behaviors they report, right? And the more self-regulated learning. And these are the two learning forms that we will really need in the future to deal with this change. And what we see, it also relates to positive work outcomes. So we see the same positive work outcomes that we also see with psychological empowerment. We see increased job satisfaction and increased work engagement. So very important. And let me finish with my last slide here. What is our key takeaway message, right? So the strategic imperative from my perspective is let's foster sense-making, right? Explain and work with our organization of why learning is important for us, and for us specifically, right? Because you've already mentioned, well, in the military context, this might look very different. Create space for autonomy, and that means, for example, time. Engage the leaders in, well, how can you create time for learning in this ever hyper-accelerated economy, and build learning competence of our learners for the world of AI, but also with AI. Okay, so how can they best learn with AI? And then assure that learning makes a difference at work, okay, for these learners. So what can we conclude with? I would say, let's try and reshape the narrative. Okay, let's reshape the narrative together from the thought of polycrises to a world of polypotential, in which we all can deal with AI in a very responsible manner and, let's say, for the good of humanity. Thank you.
Brilliant. Stay up. Okay. That's great. Listen, if you've got any questions, Fania, just think about it for a second. I'm going to ask a question now, then we'll take any questions from the floor, but I might also ask the panel some questions too. Very quickly, ghost learning.
Yeah.
Well, I thought I knew all the terms, but what's ghost learning?
Actually, in a special issue, I'm an editor for, one of the authors investigated ghost learning, and you might know it from different term, but he said that in many instances, students or also adults feel, oh no, I have learned, but it's this idea of having learned is actually just kind of a ghost, right?
It's
because
an illusion.
it's an illusion,
Right.
and they haven't acquired competence in that process.
Yeah, I think I'm a ghost learner in a wide range of fields.
So this is just my contact information, because yesterday you said I needed to.
Absolutely. No,
close with that, yeah.
very good, of course. Thank you. I thought, so having the QR code, very important.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions? Because what we're doing is we're starting on the fundamental basis. If we want to be strategic, we actually have to have an impact on the learners. So what do we need to do? Here are some practical tips on doing that. And then we're going to go on to look at the next presentation. It's going to be looking at, well, how do we organize our department to do that? Any questions for Anya on this one right now? Yes, go ahead, and let's race over with a microphone.
So my name is Ingeborg, I'm from the Netherlands. I was wondering, given that you shared some data on how some of the current developments actually increase inequality, and especially for marginalized groups, this inequality is currently, enlarged through learning. Should that also not be a strategic imperative, that we do all of this, but then make sure that that is equitable and inclusive?
Definitely, definitely, and I think so. From the focus I set on learning empowerment, in this presentation, I think this is, for example, most heavily targeted by the idea of build learning competence, right? Because this is, for example, something we also saw during COVID, when COVID hit, that learners with different access, for example, to the tools or to media had very different starting positions, And so I think this, of course, first you need access, and then you need to be able to build competence with that, so definitely.
So, sorry, go ahead, yes.
I think there are two ways to learn now, because first one is technical, AI algorithms, how they work. But other one is also mindfulness, because it changes every 3 weeks, even 1 week. So there is a fear of, missing this one. I think we first have to empower our community. We cannot catch up with this speed, it is unhuman. So it should be a two-way empowerment, because mindfulness is critical here, because everyone, even business leaders, in panic, and from bottom to top, everyone. What do you think about this mindfulness with AI, They don't take this consideration, I think. We have to upskill people, yes, but it's impossible with this speed.
And it's a great question, because you mentioned the sense of overwhelm that people have. And when you are overwhelmed, as you said, it reduces your ability to learn. Looking at something, having reflection, being mindful, gives you a chance to learn better. What can we do about it?
Exactly. So let me first add something, right? So this idea of work-related learning empowerment per se, and the way we've set it up, that is not targeted to a specific form of learning. Okay. So these imperatives I just coined for our broader topic of AI. But I'm totally with you. That's what I meant with let's start with the problem. Why are we here? What are the skills we need to address, and how can we best do that? But yes, in the future, AI is going to be one learning path, one tool. But in the concept of new learning that I shaped here in Germany, we've said yes, and that was post-COVID, right? New learning is not digital learning. It is not e-learning, because we need to start with the problem, and we need to ask, well, what for this problem, right? What is the best way of what is the best learning format we can use? And so you would say that, in some instances, and definitely, I agree with that, the best way is, well, let's build up resilience right? Let's build up resilience and reflectiveness in this hyper-accelerated world, because this is what's going to be keeping us healthy. But the way through which you can do that can also be very different. Yeah, you can use different methods for it.
I know that there are a whole bunch of other questions which we could ask, and I'm really looking forward to further research into this area of how do we support this sense of empowerment. But that's where we're starting. We're going to build strategic influence for L&D. We always talk about a seat at the board, but we have to have the impact at the individual level, and that's what this is all about. Looking forward to the further research. Thank you very much, Dr. Schmitz. All right, so we have this idea of individual empowerment, fine, all right. What do we do with the Learning and Development Department? How do we take that and make that not just a back office function, but something at the front office, something that is the organization is listening to? I don't know the answer, but fortunately, we have Avinash Chandrana who does. Avinash, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thanks, John. Good morning.
Sorry about taking the clicker away. Sorry about taking the clicker.
That was good. Let's do that again. Good morning. I'm going to follow Don. Good morning. Okay, I need that energy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So MCI Group, that's the organization I work for, and I've been there 27 years. 27 years and only 2 positions. But as I've learned, a title doesn't matter. It's about the jobs we do every single day that matters, and the skills that we have that keeps us engaged and motivated. MCI Group, very briefly for context, we're a global event marketing and communications agency, 30 countries, 60 offices, and about just under 2,000 talents. And my team, current team, and I'm going to share with you the story of how we began, is 3 staff. 1 is in Santiago in Chile, and 2 are in Spain, wonderful destinations. And I am in lovely Brussels, Belgium. Wonderful. Anyone from Brussels? No, there you go. It says a lot, doesn't it? No, I love Brussels. I'm British, but that's all right. I was born in Africa. I'm a refugee from Uganda. I grew up in the UK and lived on 4 continents, so I've really had a great experience in my life, and I've loved every moment of it, with some challenges along the way, especially in our organizations and what we do, a lot of us, in learning and development. And I'll share with you some of those ups and downs that I've had within the organization. Now, what's interesting is the challenge that we've faced over many, many years, and this is the challenge how I've sort of framed it. Basically, it is to try and decentralize learning for a company that's been growing globally for many, many years. And how do we embed that culture of curiosity and growth across, obviously, a widely dispersed demographic across the world? And so ultimately, part of this challenge, as many of you will know, is how do we move away from this perception of back office to being front office and having that level of impact that we all want in what we do every single day. I want to take you back to the foundations, though. As I said, this is a personal story, and this year was very important, 2008. Does anyone know what happened in 2008?
Crash?
There was a financial crisis, absolutely. What else happened? Anything else? Sorry? A mortgage boom or crash, I think, wasn't it? That was the one. That was the crash, right. Beijing Olympics. Barack Obama was voted president. And Beyonce had a great #1 single. Put her finger on it, or I won't put my finger up because I may put it up the wrong way. But something else also happened, very important, actually, the most important thing of all, the MCI Institute was born. And that was my business plan at the time. I'd been 10 years in the organization, in one office, building up talent and development for one office, and we were expanding globally, and I was about to leave. And I said, okay, so the CEO said to me, what do you want to do? I said, well, actually, I'm passionate about learning. I have a business plan. Here you go. This is called the MCI Institute. He goes, oh, that's fascinating. Okay, he read it, probably within 2 minutes, and said, okay, I'll give it a shot. You've got 1 year. Excellent. How much budget do I have? 0. Good luck. You've got 1 year. I knew what that meant. So my KPI at the time was bums in seats. That was it. I was quite surprised. There was no Kirkpatrick at that time or anything like that in terms of what I wanted to do. So ultimately, it was how do we grow globally as we were scaling, and I became a beta tester for GoToTraining. Some of you may have heard of that way back, or GoToMeetings it was as well. But yet the COO, when I asked for a budget of 2 licenses, the COO said this. I said, all right, fair enough. Can I have one license then? He said, okay, I'll give you one license. That's how we started, honestly, on the digital side. And then the challenge was, okay, we're a central model, but how do we become more federated and empower the local offices? So going from that push culture, as it were, to something that's more push-pull, and creating that empowerment. So actually in 2015, I put this together 10 years ago as a strategy saying this is the direction we need to go to in the next 10 years. And we launched our first LMS back in 2014, more or less. I didn't believe in LMSs, but at the time I said, okay, let's go for it, see what happens. But then some interesting things happened. I started by myself, that's me in the little brown icon. I built up to 2 people in 2010 with a little bit of budget. I built up to another 4 people in 2016, and then I was asked to come to headquarters to meet the CEO directly, and he said, I'm sorry, but your whole team has to be cut. Off they go by the end of 2016. So that's what happened. After 8 years of building it up. That was tough. The next few years was really trying to figure out what to do next. I could have quit. It was a challenge I had, and I knew that, okay, let's stick around because I'm still passionate about the organization. I didn't agree with the decision. I told the CEO I didn't agree with his decision, but I'm there to make it work. I said, I built a car, I found the mechanics, I put the engine in, but you've just taken it all out, and you're asking me to push that car forward now. He said, you'll manage. I said, why didn't you let me go because I'm the most expensive resource? He said, because you're the brains behind it, and you'll find a way. That was a challenge I accepted. And so after that, I continued to rebuild a team. Considering I had a team before, all of them are doing very, very well. I'm proud of them now in terms of where they're at. So then the whole concept was from going from build to rebuild again. And ultimately, it gave me space. It gave me space in 2017 to think about AI. And I started working with a small company in London who was working with AI and personalization engines. And that was my time to learn and to reinvent myself. So I started on that AI journey, but ultimately there were some hard truths that we were still dealing with. And these are the ones that you'll recognize on screen that most of us face, right? Nodding heads, yes or no? Exactly. We all have faced this, and we still continue to do so. These are the barriers to overcome. Ultimately, we put a solution in place. So coming back for 1 second, actually, what was interesting, this was COVID times were hitting soon. I'd moved to Hong Kong. Hong Kong was the first place to be hit with COVID in January 2020. I work in the events industry. Our industry was decimated. We do 5,000 projects and events a year globally. We cut 1,000 of our workforce. At that moment in time, by myself in Hong Kong in a 38 square meter apartment, I was fearing for my job again. But I sent a message to the CEO and I said, I have an idea. I said, I've been working with online learning since 2010. We're in the events industry. Everything went online. Do you remember? I said, I'm passionate about neuroscience. We've been working with online engagement for years, even if it was on a small scale. We created a whole consulting project of how we build neuroscience for engagement for online events. We were the first in the world to do it for the event industry. And within 3 months, we trained 600 people online, 4 hours a day, every single day, almost 17 hours a day. We did that. And we turned things around. So that was a proud moment of using our own expertise as L&D and seeing how it directly impacts the business and the challenges we were facing. And indeed, the solution was we had a legacy LMS and it didn't work very well. That had to go. And generative AI came along in 2023. We signed a partnership with a Swedish company. And ultimately, that changed the game. I have to say, it really has transformed how we have now decentralized and transformed how we engage our global offices and our subject matter experts around the world. And that's the model that you see that we put into place right there. Thinking about AI fluency, thinking about how do we measure that, thinking about how do we empower, only spending 20 minutes to train subject matter experts and giving them the agency to continue to build content that is relevant at local level because we at central level cannot do that for a growing organization. So with all that said, that has been a big change since 2008, starting with bums in seats as a KPI. So what kind of other impact have we seen? Well, ultimately, okay, it's the content creation times. If you think about digital and how AI is helping all of us, And it's not all about creating content. I'm fully aware of that. But of course, that's an indicator. We've saved 67,000 in the first few months of creating content. We've reduced content creation time by about 65%. Not only that, I'm also a consultant. I mentioned my title doesn't describe me as a learning and development person, even if it's a CLTO. I take that expertise and I consult for clients. And this year, I raised 100,000 in revenue just from my consulting alone. And we also encouraged our clients, which also include associations that are non-profit, how to help with their education strategy. And that's myself and my team that's doing that. And that's front office impact. So the ripple effect on that as well, it goes further. So I talked about consulting for clients. I don't know how many of you have heard of third box thinking. It's not just about the impact you have on clients, it's the client's client that you have an impact on as well. And sure enough, for one of our clients, an association, it's a global association that we work with, the consulting project that we've done basically goes from elevating our own digital transformation to ultimately consulting to the client, and there's a direct impact on their clients, which are basically members of associations. And with that said, and that's what we call the third box principle, with that said, there's been 500,000 forecasted for that client as a result. As a result of that project we've done, that's what they're forecasting now. So if I look back at the ingredients of evolution over these years, 17 years that I've been working in this area, what are some of those ingredients for evolution and success? Performance thinking. Learning is just, as we know, a journey. We speak all the time about learning, but why? Honestly, the business doesn't really care about learning per se. They care about the outcome. They care about performance. What are the KPIs? Let's stop just using learning as a word all the time, but think about performance as the target. Stakeholder alliances. I've worked very closely with the CIOs, CMOs, and as a result, after 17 years of having the same job title, my CEO decided to promote me to, 6 months ago, to Chief Learning and Transformation Officer. And ultimately, that's been about reinvention. All this time, when I was kicked down and you fail, you bounce back up, and ultimately that takes a lot of grit and determination. Or you can just give up. And remember this statement? That was the COO who said that in 2010. He became the CEO. This year, this is what he said. And as a result of that, we were very proud to also then be featured by Josh Bersin in the AI Revolution report, as well as Don Taylor and Aygül Vaneskaitu in 2 reports, of which you've got the QR code right now. There's a promotion for Don in the report. AI and L&D, our case study of MCI Group is in there. And so ultimately, I see this as a catalyst for change with L&D, and we are in the business of transformation. And with that said, the journey continues. Thank you.
Stay on your feet. I'm sure you've got lots of questions. I'm just going to ask one very quickly. You talked about decentralizing the production of content. And how important that was. Can you just talk a little bit more about that? Because for me, that's one of the key bits of your story, is how you freed yourself up from the time that takes and accelerated the sharing of good knowledge in the organization.
Correct, yeah. Well, it's always been, as I said, from 10 years ago, that was the strategy. But we needed the right infrastructure, especially technology, to help us get there.
Right.
But the technology was not ready. But obviously, with the latest technologies, it has helped us. That question then becomes, how do we empower, and that key word again, empower subject matter experts and local offices, local HR, to leverage that technology and say, look, you need relevant content. We can't do this across the globe with just 3 staff full time. So here's technology, we will train you, but that training takes like 20, 25 minutes. People talk about governance and quality and how can you rely on them, right, when you don't want to check, when you don't check their material. I said, listen, if they're going to take the time as a subject matter expert to create a course when they don't have a lot of time, because that's not their day job, then trust them. Otherwise, it's their credibility on the line. And that's really helped a lot. And not only that, learning weeks. You know, a lot of you may have local learning weeks, learning months, and that's the other area that we've really pushed, and that's been very successful. Brilliant. That's part of the whole story.
Do we have questions for Avinash? You have to be careful, because if I see a hand going up, I shall point to you. Got a hand popping up here.
I want to ask a simple questions. KPI or OKR?
Good question.
Can we get, just can we just clarify what a KPI and an OKR are?
Well, first of all, if it's about objectives and key results and actions that you have to take, it's a great question. Why? When we think about strategy for L&D, every single HQ leader, and I've been doing this for over 15 years, we have to create an issue action KPI, 3 only, maximum, because otherwise you don't have priorities if you have more than 3, right? We have to do that at the end of every year. Every single HQ leader has to meet. The CEO looks at everything and how does it align to the vision of 2030. That's exactly how we do it. And every single month, I have an updated meeting with the group president to look at every single one of my 3 priorities and where we're at with the dashboard, making sure that we're linking to the business all the time. So I think you have to have KPIs for programs, but you need to have the bigger strategy in terms of how does it link to the business strategy. And that's where the issue action KPI comes into place. It really helps give direction.
Very cool. Question here?
You're saying trust the SMEs with the content because their jobs are on the line. However, they do not often get instructional design.
Correct.
So when I come into organizations as a consultant, very often I see an offering that has low ID quality.
Correct.
Because of the involvement of SMEs. How do you fix that?
Can we just acronyms, ID, instructional designer, SME, subject matter expert.
All
okay.
right, yes.
I agree. First of all, you're right. It's not perfect. It's not. They're not doing courses that are 60 minutes long. They're doing maybe micro courses, which is more based on resources or tools and so on. That's going to help a point of need. That's the level that we're focusing on predominantly, rather than great instructional design. If it helps their target groups, and the target groups are giving feedback saying that's been helpful, that's great. That's where we go. But we do try to provide from an HQ point of view that consulting work. My team aren't great instructional designers, but we've learned enough to support them as guidance. So that's what we do.
What do you do centrally that you don't push out to the subject matter experts?
Of course, when you have a global initiative like sort of leadership programs, management programs, compliance and so on, we are looking at that. But we're more and more going into the consulting role towards clients. Right. So balancing those 2 things.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
What I love about all of our panelists is their practical experience and the depth of thinking about this. What I love about Avinash in particular is this energy. And I think this epitomizes for me this sense that you just got to get the job done. And that graph where everything falls away and it's you by yourself, having had a talk before. I've seen that happen so many times, and I know it's happening right now. But I hope this is an inspirational story that if people feel that's going to happen, you can still get through. Avinash, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, so we've looked at how individuals are motivated to learn, how we can support them in it. We've looked at how we can get the function going from the back office to the front. Now let's have a look at the individuals themselves and how we can trust individuals and support them during a time of change to help them go on and do different jobs. And to help us with that, we have Arda Aygül from Türkiye Bankası. Arda.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to be here with you. It's a pleasure. I'm also excited to share insights and hear your thoughts. Today, I'm going to try to give a little glimpse of how Anya's and other research could be alive in real world. Mm-hmm. So, for a context, I'm going to give a little bit information about my role and my company. I'm Learning and Development Manager of İşbank. İşbank is the largest private bank in Turkey, celebrated its 100th anniversary last year. We have nearly 1,000 branches widely spread all around Turkey, and we have over 20,000 employees. We own bank subsidiaries in several countries, including Germany. So, in my presentation today, I'm going to share the real-life story of how recycling became one of the most influential levers of Bank of the Future approach of İşbank. So let's start. I prepared 3 presentation slides to share with you the real-life implication of our project. First of all, what were the design rationales behind our recycling learning programs? First of all, as everybody in this room knows that today we are living in a highly rapidly developing environment, business environment. So the rise of future of work, skill-based career management, artificial intelligence, digitalization are making companies to transform how they operate and how employees work. This is a basic truth for all of us. Additionally, in banking becoming a highly data-intensive industry, along with the high competition, especially from fintechs. So this requires us, for our bank and the other banks, and also the employees, to gain digital and analytical skills to stay competitive. So reskilling or upskilling are crucial for being intact in today's highly dynamic world. The first reason is basic for our process to start this learning journey. Secondly, we had specific reasons in İşbank, along with our unique HR policies. Firstly, İşbank only recruits from entry-level positions. All employees start from entry-level and mostly new graduates and young professionals and progress through their career path to managerial positions. No mid-level managers or senior-level managers are recruited. For example, I've been working in İşbank nearly 20 years and started as an assistant specialist in my role. So, additionally, another HR policy, in İşbank, learning and development and HR opportunities are provided to all employees, regardless of their role and title. So we enable all employees to prosper in their roles, along with the equal opportunity principle. Along with these HR policies, it is clear that we couldn't close our skills or talent gap with hiring. Reskilling was the only scalable and viable solution for us. As third reason for starting these learning programs was our bank has Bank of the Future vision. And along with this vision, we cooperated with a highly global consultancy company and initiated the Bank of the Future project for İşbank. Along with the results of these projects, it revealed that the rising skills, digitalization, analytics, data analytics, user experience, and digital marketing that should be set in the bank, and the required number of employees in regarding domains. Along with these three reasons, we started reskilling journey at scale in our bank. So during the process, what were the obstacles and design considerations? First of all, as I mentioned, we have a broad audience, nearly 20,000 employees with uneven skills. Reskilling learning programs should be available to all employees without any limits, regardless of their role and title. Employees with no prior knowledge about these topics would also participate to these learning programs with the equal opportunity principle I mentioned. For example, a bank teller in a branch or a supervisor working in loan allocation in the head office are both in our target group. So, how we will tackle this problem? As learning and development professionals, we worked with our team and designed our learning journey as a self-paced modular learning solution consisting of videos, reading materials, articles, online assessments in a modular manner. So this enabled all employees start these learning journeys in an equal environment as an optional learning sources whenever they want, without any prior knowledge. So another obstacle to tackle was technical and accessibility needs, some technical constraints. I guess everyone working in digital learning environment know that there are always problems, especially in the technical means, when you try to share a learning solution with your employees. For instance, as I mentioned, we designed a self-paced learning journey which consisting of videos, articles, and online assessments. These all make us to think a lot of days. So we improved our ongoing learning management system and supported our video streaming capabilities, improved our reporting dashboards in our ongoing learning management system, and also enabled it to add online assessment at the end of each module during the learning journeys. This created a seamless user experience for our employees. And we choose on purpose our ongoing LMS to create a familiarity factor to enable them to start this journey without any hesitation. Additionally, during the process, we decided to add live webinars to these learning journeys to enable employees to find answers to their real-life questions during the process. Because, as I mentioned, this is a self-paced learning journey. But these live webinars enable them to ask real-life questions to the experts in these fields. And during the process, also, we decided to record these live webinars because everyone knows that there is every employee have a busy schedule, and the ones who couldn't attend to these live webinars, we shared these recordings from our LMS to enable them to equally reach this learning opportunity. Another obstacle to overcome for my country is there are limited Turkish resources. So and also these topics are very highly terminological ones, especially for the employees who were not unfamiliar with these topics. So we designed custom dictionaries related with these topics and shared via our LMS. And additionally, my team worked on the learning content we derived from international vendors and translated and subtitled them in Turkish and shared via our LMS. So, as I mentioned, we tried to create an equal environment for everyone who wants to prosper and improve his knowledge in these fields without any limits. Sorry, again. I'm pressing, sorry. So, the last problem to tackle, I guess everyone working on learning and development sharing with this problem, balancing learning with business priorities and creating an engaging environment. As a first step in our learning journeys, to show all employees that these programs are supported and embraced by senior management, we organized promotional videos with our deputy CEOs of HR, data analytics, and digital banking featured in these videos. Deputy CEOs gave direct message to employees that these skills are crucial for our bank's success and direct effect on their careers to reskill themselves into these roles without any background knowledge. So this directly affected and created an engaging environment for our employees and see the sponsorship of the C-level managers. Additionally, during the process, we actively persuaded our managers to enable, especially in the branches, we supported them and make them to enable employees easily log into our LMS and start these learning journeys. Even in some cases, we cooperated with HR partners and create temporary staffing adjustments for the branches with heavy workloads and enable the employees of these branches to easily start these learning journeys as I mentioned again, in an equal environment. So another problem to tackle in the means of engagement, as I mentioned, we added online assessments after each module. These assessments create a fear factor for everyone. So to overcoming this fear factor, we made various difficulty levels for the assessments, and we created a fair monitoring environment. Everyone easily see his or her score in the system and ability to retake the assessments after each session. So this also enables us to overcome the disengaging factor in the means of assessing someone. So, to conclude my presentation, I guess the most important part of my presentation is the results and tangible outcomes of these learning programs. First of all, we've started our reskilling learning programs in 2021, which was Data Analytics Development Program. There were very promising numbers. We have 20,000 employees, as you can see here, 12,740 employees, more than half of our employee base, started these journeys and completed at least one training. Additionally, 3,422 employees completed the first phase and successful in the assessments after each module. And lastly, 1,287 employees finished all the process, live webinars, modules, takes all the online assessments, and take the certificates, and finished and created our data analytics talent pool in the bank. Once they were branch workers. This is very important. So, as the real-life transformation impact, you see that we reached nearly 100 employees, 97 employees, fully reskilled to data analytics roles in the bank, many coming from branch banking backgrounds without any prior knowledge. After 7-8 month orientation period and assessment procedure, these employees fully reskilled to these roles. Additionally, we also started other digital learning programs in the topics like user experience and digital marketing. They are still going on. We are negotiating, cooperating with HR partners to reskill these employees to their new roles. And we reached at the end, like a funnel system, you see after each assessment the number is decreasing. We reached about 500 each member in the talent pools of these topics also. So, as a real-life outcomes in the cultural and business benefits, we reached about significant growth in data literacy across all bank employees. High participation from branches showed us that we reached our equal opportunity principle. And most importantly, we reduced dependence on external vendors and created a faster, higher quality analytics delivery for every department in the bank. For HR and learning and development professionals, a blended architecture consisting of videos, articles, assessments in a modular manner proved that it is working and became model for our new internal academies. For example, nowadays, we are working on Test Academy to enable employees to reskill themselves in IT department test roles. As a result of all these efforts, we have also recognized an international level and won Brandon Hall Human Capital Management Excellence Awards in 2024 for both of our reskilling learning programs. So I try to give a little glimpse of real-life implication of how reskilling and upskilling could be available. And for closing, I could say that along with these results, believe in your people and give them a chance to rise, grow, and prosper. This is a proof how this will be available in real life. Thanks for your attention.
Arda, thank you. Arda, thank you. I think that's a great message at the end. Could you just go back to the previous slide? Because I think these numbers are really impressive. People fully skilled, so you're going from a bank teller to being a data analyst. That's amazing. Yeah. I've got one question for you, which is, how did you get the C-level people to do those promotional videos? Because now you've got people saying, we want to use this as a model. But they didn't know then. So what persuaded them to do the videos right at the beginning?
Yeah. A great question. Actually, the results of the project, and we have, as I mentioned, we have a Bank of the Future vision.
Right.
And specifically, and I guess it is the first time in history, our CEO background is in IT. So he believes these topics were critical for our success, and we are trying to become a Bank of the Future.
Right.
So how this could be available with our employees, with and no one outside, with ourselves. So they started actually this program. And it was not hard for us to persuade them to be in role in this promotional videos. And actually, our CEO gave a message to deputy CEOs, and they also easily and motivated to get roles in these promotional videos. This greatly helped us because hearing this from the CEO, C-level and CEO level, the importance of these skills, how they will affect the success of the bank in process. And actually, as my closing statement, showing the belief in the people and giving them chance to be prosper directly. As we didn't expect these results, but it showed us that it is working.
So it shows that Anya's research of trusting and empowering individuals goes on to actually have a practical effect. And I love this message about linking through to what the CEO is saying. And if you link it to the strategy and you get the CEO is on board, then everything else downstream is much easier. We're going to move on now. Arda, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So we've looked at how we can empower individuals, how to get the L&D department from the back to the front, how really focusing on the individuals and believing them can do it. How do we finally take the step of making sure that our department is ready for the future? I think you said the answer was to be bold. Kerry, can you go into more details on that one, please?
Sure. Morning, everyone. Morning. Thank you. I've been sort of listening to the presentations and thinking about the questions and answers that you've given so far. And I think what I most like about what we're talking about today is the word around revolution. And when I look out to this audience, I see designers, I see architects, I see stewards, I see visionaries, community builders, I see people that care. And I wonder how often you use those words to describe yourself and the work that you do. Or do you just carry the title that you were given on a piece of paper and a contract to carry that? And I think what's interesting as we move through this sort of poly-potential, poly-crisis world we live in is the language we use and the labels we use will create the legacies that we will leave behind us. And what I wanted to talk about today is a little bit around the work that me and my team have been doing over the last few years about how we position our organisation for tomorrow's workplace. My name is Kerry O'Neill. I'm a Chief People Officer. So my remit covers all of the people strategy and the HR function for an organisation called Ipsos. And Ipsos, for those of you who don't know it, it's a market research, political polling, opinion polling organisation. We're in 93 countries across the globe, 20,000 employees. I'm also on the board of trustees for Oxfam, an international NGO that works all the way across the world to support people who are in poverty. And that work is incredibly important and humbling. What it teaches me is in both the private sector and in our third sector, in our charity sectors, huge challenges are approaching us. And the roles that we are doing are really, really important. I've been inspired recently by a couple of individuals. Neither of them are still alive or even real. So the first one is Barbie, of course, the movie that sort of lifted us as we came out of the pandemic. And in a very poignant song, she says, "What was I made for?" And I think Anya's question about how do we empower people means that that's a pertinent question. The second person who's inspired me, being here also on continental Europe, is Carl Jung. And he said, "It is only when I see myself as I am that I can be." And again, really important ideas about self-identity as we move forward. And I'll show you how we've incorporated that in our journey. So the first sort of place for a revolution is to face reality, right? So we've talked about this a lot, and yesterday's panel actually brought this home way better than this one slide. This is an AXA and Ipsos study that we do every year about what it is that people think are the biggest emerging risks that are coming at us. This is the world according to experts, deep experts in risk analysis and economy and in society. And actually we mirror this study for the general population as well, and they mirror around the threats. Climate change is still deemed the biggest threat that is going to face us in terms of the long-term outcomes. I know that doesn't match with the political discourse and what the media talks about a lot, but there it is. We have also got geopolitical instability, cybersecurity, AI, and the changing social tensions and movements as the top 5 things that are coming at us hard and fast. Interesting for me is, of course, where does the boardroom spend its time? Where do your company spend its time? Interesting that some of these threats and risks are probably being under-discussed in most organizations due to lots of different reasons. It's also great, I work at Ipsos, but I also get to see all our studies, and this is studies that came in 2025, and it's saying, well, how is this translating in the workplace right now? And there's some pretty sobering statistics out there that I thought I would share with you. You know, the first one being the one around that actually we talk a lot about the fact that people need managers to feel connected, to be inspired, to be empowered, yet only 51% of people feel understood by that person and that critical role in someone's life. That's just over half of people not with a manager that they feel understands them. We know that burnout is on the rise, and we did a study of managers and senior leaders, and 42% of them say, actually, I'm pretty close to that burnout moment. It's a little bit lower for the general population of our workforce, about 34%, but it is higher for managers. And of course, half of the workforce are feeling that AI is going to take my job, or they're quite cynical that they're going to take my job, and they're probably not even going to tell me that it's going to take my job until I get a redundancy message, etc. So we have a lot of trepidation, we have a lot of strain in our workforce, and we're also in a place where we're not feeling particularly understood. This is also coming at a time of great technological shift, and this is a really helpful sort of graphic that's come from a leading AI company in the UK. And it kind of characterizes the fact that 250 years we've been human first in our thinking. Whatever needs to be done in our workforce, let's hire more people, let's do more training, let's put the humans in that role. We're in a sort of interesting phase right now, which actually this set of experts think is going to be quite a short phase, which is around AI assistance, i.e. we're going to get some assistance from AI to do some of the stuff. And they are predicting, and this is a future we are planning for, where increasingly work will be considered AI first, i.e. whether something's new to be done in our organizations, a new vista to climb, people will be thinking, actually, how could AI do this first? And the trajectories for this will vary depending on some different scenarios. But up to around 5 to 10 years, it being the dominant way in which we think about how work is done. And we kind of think sometimes, well, that's not going to happen, right? That's a bit optimistic, and of course AI companies, they've got investors that they're trying to lure in to give them their money to get it to grow. They've got a slight incentive to talk up the book, so to speak. But actually, this is from the UK, recent data that Ipsos has done about what's the monthly use of ChatGPT, and it has shot up in 1 year from 6 million within the population to 16 million in the population in just 12 months. And you can see that month-on-month rise of people using Gen AI on a monthly basis. And this is set to grow. And it's this sort of trajectory that we saw also with the smartphone when it arrived back in the mid-2000s. So it's here, it's coming. And so what the reality that me and my team have faced up into, and the philosophy that we have adopted within Ipsos, is something we call HI and AI, human intelligence plus artificial intelligence. We've created a philosophy around trust, transparency, and truth, i.e. we will use the human intelligence and AI intelligence to ensure that what we produce hits all three of those T's. So what does it mean for my team? What's the revolution? Why am I on stage here in OEB where we're talking about learning? Well, I think what kind of captured it when I was speaking in particular to Laura and to Don is the way in which learning and development has become absolutely central to what my team is doing in the main. And a little bit of the journey of my team. So pretty much, and I think it mirrors a lot of HR and people functions around the world as well. We are sort of primary or sort of reason to be in the organization. What were we made for? Inspired by Barbie. You know, what did the board most want from us was create a great place to work, really engage people, make sure they feel very happy to be here, make sure they're satisfied, get those happy sheets up to 10, etc., etc. And we've sort of thrown ourselves into that with a gusto, actually. So we've created more inclusive policies for nearly every sort of life situation you can imagine. We have policies and procedures for it. We bend over backwards to make sure that our culture is engaging. We do lots and lots to support individuals. When the pandemic hit, we translated that all the way into a remote workforce and now into a hybrid workforce, which brings its own set of challenges, which I won't get into today. And we have been doing that. And we've been happy to do that. And it's been a pleasure and it's been a privilege of my life and my team to create engaging workforces, diverse workforces, workplaces which, you know, are the top 50 workplaces for women to work, etc. I've done all of that. But then I've had a sinking feeling. And that sinking feeling has been that no matter how happy we are, no matter how engaged we are, no matter how collaborative we are, no matter how much we say we'll recommend this employer to other people, if we're not ready for the future coming at us, we have failed. And so what this has done for me is create a shift in the way in which our department now works. So we've been on this journey for a little while, and we called it our strategic HR and L&D transformation, where we have decided that we're no longer calling anything an initiative, we're calling it an investment. We're no longer launching things, we're leaving a legacy. We are no longer having siloed departments for well-being, for learning, for talent, for recruitment. We're having a whole group discussion, and increasingly my team don't just lead on learning, they also lead on well-being, because the skill sets translate. And increasingly we're seeing that the silos that we created to be efficient, to create engagement, are not the silos that we need in order to create a workforce ready for the future. And what we've been doing this year, and what we will be moving into over the future years, is we've changed our mission statements. We've changed what we're about in the organization. We're still there for being a great place of work. Of course we are. It does so many other things for us. It creates the space for us to learn. But we have said that we are unapologetically about preparing people for the future of co-intelligence. And it's changed the way in which people perceive our function. We're no longer just trying to keep the present day ticking along. We are actively preparing people for the future. In some ways, we try to create comfort about that future, clarity that we can do it, that there's roadmaps, that there's examples. But also increasingly, we're calling on people to understand that it is uncertain. We've trained all of our people on how the balance sheet works, for example. Every single person in our organization understands the trade-offs that we increasingly will need to take to keep our business profitable, to keep our business moving forward. We have given people additional information to understand the context in which their work operates. And increasingly, we're asking people to choose what it is that they want to do, what legacy they want to lead in the future. And you'll see here that we've created things like purpose, mindsets, and our energy levels become the cultural glue in which we are operating in. And we've done this also through the lens of leadership. And we have talked to people about we see everyone as the potential to be a leader. We've disrupted the leadership model within our organization. We have done away with the fact that leader is only something that comes with a certain position or a title. The most important aspect of this is the middle section, leading self, and the skills we've identified as people who are able to lead themselves include things like growth, learning agility, curiosity, authenticity, being change agents themselves. And we've also said to people that these are the types of leadership we need, and that it's actually okay to not occupy all of these segments. And what's been really interesting for me is we've had 130 managers step away from the leading people responsibilities that they had. Once we said it was safe for you to do so, you'll still be considered a manager, a leader, but we recognize there's other leadership skills that you've brought. That's been very helpful because those people probably weren't the best at doing that and they didn't enjoy it either. But it is possible to help people to understand that we need to make shifts. So some of our key priorities are really around helping people to understand they don't just have to do the one thing they're doing today. And I thought your example was amazing on that, so thank you. We need stories and inspiration. We're increasingly talking about how AI and humans can collaborate and what that is going to look like in a co-intelligence future. And we're increasingly shaping and reshaping what we are looking at. We're moving away from looking just at engagement to looking at the energy. You might be happy, but tired. And we need to work through how our humans in our organization work better and focusing on the cultural glue of being together. So just want to leave it there. Hopefully that gives you some idea of what we've been doing in our organization to lead the revolution of learning for the future. And very happy to connect with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Kerry, one quick question, and then I'm going to get the audience. So I'm going to ask Kerry a quick question, then I'm going to ask you to do something. Quick question. The people who step back from being a manager, that's very difficult. But it's crucial. They're not happy. They're not necessarily doing a good job. How did you support them when they stepped back from that role to make them feel valued?
Because we've said that all of those leadership quadrants are of equal importance. Mm-hmm. And we would rather people become amazing at the sections of that model that they think they can thrive in. And I think, what it is about making sure that where does status and power live in your organization? Yeah. And if you have it only in sort of if it only looks one way, i.e. you lead a big team, and you've got a big title, and you've got a corner office, that is going to mean that people are quite scared to change that. However, if you say that in a co-intelligence world, we need this type of leadership, and all of it's important. Everyone matters. That's a sort of underlying theme in our sort of underlying philosophy within my team. Everybody matters. Yep. Then I guess people have trusted us and done it.
And it needs that word trust is crucial, and needs trust throughout the organisation, support from the top in the culture. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Kerry O'Neill, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, actually, we've got a quick question. Just tell me. Okay.
How do you manage to shift your leadership principle from a leader-follower principle to a leader-leader principle?
Yeah.
What's the first step? Because management maybe...
How do you shift the management principles from manager-leader to manager-manager? principle, you were saying, yeah?
Leader, follower.
Sorry, go on.
To shift from leader follower to leader management leadership principles.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if how this translates, but we've done a lot of discussion in our organization about the fact that everyone in our organization is an adult. Even a graduate at 18 is an adult and they can bring something. And it speaks to ego quite a lot. It speaks to, I guess, a philosophy of leadership that we have is about what is it that you can make happen, what's the legacy that you lead, rather than how much sort of material possessions you can accumulate. You know, so is your leadership based on status or is it based on action? And we've really swung it to action. And actually, with our younger generation, they don't want to feel like they're following people anymore. I mean, we've got followers online, etc. But they see an equal relationship quite often in our workforce. So I'm not saying it's perfect, and I'm not saying it's suited everyone. But I think we have to get into topics like actually, what do you do? What impact have you had? We've talked about impact and performance focus here, but also the fact that everyone has something to contribute. Yeah. We talk a lot about, if you're on the payroll, your talent, otherwise why did we hire you? That was a bit of a stupid decision, for example. And it speaks to the fact that we then have candid feedback as something that we saw feedback as a skill, for example. So it's a developing culture that we're creating, but we think it's really, really important because I think in the polycrisis world, we don't know expertise won't sit in the same boxes on the structure chart that it once did. And so that's the realization we're leaning into.
It's a great question. I think that point of culture is a really good part of the answer. I'm going to now, we've got 2 minutes left, I'm going to ask you to wrap up in the same, with a reflection in anybody sitting near to you. We started off talking about barriers. I'd like to finish talking about action. So we started talking about what are the barriers to acting strategically. I'd now like to think about, given what we've heard today, just have a quick discussion. We're not going to do feedback because we won't have time, but I'd like to ask you to think about what will you do on Monday morning as a result of what you've heard today to be more strategic. And then I'm going to ask our panel to wrap up with 10 seconds each on that. So just do a 1 minute, please, with a discussion on that, and then we're going to wrap up ourselves. Go ahead. Okay, so we're going to need everybody to do literally 20 seconds on... So what's your Monday morning thing?
Gather your team, talk to the leaders, and...
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. That's great. Loving the energy, loving the thinking. We've gone from polycrisis to revolution. We're talking about individuals, empowering individuals, trusting them, helping them build for a future, getting them out, thinking beyond what we do, but thinking about the future of work. I'm talking about getting the L&D department from going from the back office to the front office, being strategic. I'm going to ask our panel very quickly, 10, maybe 15 seconds each. What should they recommend everyone does on a Monday morning? We'll start, Anya.
Yeah, get your team together, connect to the leaders, talk about the meaning of learning and how it contributes to business success.
All right. linking to business, get them together, business success. Arda?
Briefly, reconsider to learn new things.
Just to think about learning new things. Kerry?
I think look at the narrative that you put around your team and your work and see if it hits the most aspirational future you're really aiming for.
Think big. Brilliant. Avinash?
Step away from tactics and just talking about programs, initiatives. Think about how does this tie into the business. Think about issue, action, KPI. What are your top 2 or 3 priorities? No more. And focus on that.
Focus. Wow. What a great summary. Thank you for your time. Let's thank our panel. Thank you very much. All right. Break time now. Have a great rest of the second day of the conference, everyone. Thank you so much.